This is Into the Unknown, Season 5, Episode 5.
Fiver!
Today, we return to Skinwalker Ranch to tell the story of the family that experienced the double-barrel strangeness all within a relatively short period of time. You won't find a more jam-packed place of high strangeness. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm still John Fitzpatrick.
All right,
Okay.
Still John Fitzpatrick. So as you know, we're coming back to the ranch, and we're doing this in segments. Today's story comes it does come completely from Colm Kelleher and George Knapp's book, Hunt for the Skinwalker.
The standard text in the field, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, they were there. They've talked to the family. They were at their work for NIDS. So yeah, I mean, they've got the information cornered.
Okay.
Not the only book out there, but certainly the ones closest to the source. Rather than try and cover this whole big topic, we're going to dig in with just focus on the family today. And so let's dive in.
The family that I want to say originally owned, but
it's not
accurate?
The original owners.
Right.
They're just in the series of owners. These were the ones that had the experiences, but then it became public within their era.
Right.
Meaning, like, it hit the press. We'll get to all that.
This is the origin story in a sense, but there were owners before.
You'll see evidence that these were not the first people to experience things there, because we know it has a history. It's just that it became to light.
That's why I'm trying to couch this correctly. I have some familiarity with this story, so I'm hoping to be able to riff a little bit. But I have not really delved into this information.
I know this isn't your thing.
For a while.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to riff on, just because it covers so many, many areas.
No, but this was the piece I'm most familiar with, rather than after they sold to
right. And we're gonna cover that book.
What's his name with the aerospace?
Bigelow.
Bigelow. It escaped me for a second there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, well, let's jump in. Now, we started our Skinwalker Ranch journey with the very human-focused story of Thomas Winterton experiencing a serious medical condition, synchronicities, and several very troubling paranormal events. But before Thomas Winterton stepped foot on the ranch, and before a private individual, Bigelow, purchased and studied it, a family lived there. A normal family, wishing nothing more than to be left alone to raise cattle and live quiet lives a full mile off the road where very little would bother them.
That does sound really tempting. But that might just be our pre-recording conversation coming back to us.
This is written. This is scripted. So there's reasons for all the words.
No, I believe you.
Yeah. Now, sadly, for this family, they would not find the quiet they craved. No, they would have the exact opposite. And even though Skinwalker Ranch had a history before them, this family were the ones to have their exceedingly strange and achingly troubling experiences captured for posterity. Allow me to introduce the Gormans, Tom, his wife Ellen, and their two children, Tad and Kate. Now, you must know, I'm using the name that is used in Colm Kelleher and George Knapp's book, Hunt for the Skinwalker. It is not the actual name of the family. Now, that name is out there to find if you must know it, but I'm using the alias out of respect.
Okay, that seems fair, especially with the disclaimer that we know that this is not the actual name.
Yeah, when you go finding, it's not hidden, really. You can go find it.
Sure, you can pull
for
up
whatever
the property
reason.
Records and...
Well, yeah, probably. And even when I picked up the book and started reading it, I already knew the other name. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, why are they changing the name? It's really already out there. But I'm just going to go with what the authors intended. Because
that and it helps keep track of the internal stories in the book.
It may, right? If a particular name turns up with one name or the other, it might help you deduce. And that's oddly a government tactic, which is strange. Anyway, so I would offer as much respect to anybody in the middle of all of this anyway, but after reading their story, John, And realizing the degree of their suffering, I feel compelled to help protect these people with any small gesture in my power. And I'm not being dramatic. This is not light and airy. George Washington, light and airy. Prayer episode, light and airy, sort of skimming along and finding fun things.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, I'm not going to try and break any tension. I'm going to tell it like it is. Also, if you have pets and don't want to hear about animals being hurt or worse, be forewarned.
Okay, I'm out. Sorry. I love my cats.
I can tell you no cats are hurt.
Okay, let me pull up my big boy pants here.
I'll put them on.
I'll get ready for, handling adult material.
Yeah, it's rough.
Okay.
Right. We'll get to it.
I'll put on my brave face.
Yeah, let's be brave. Now let's go. And this might run long. But we'll see. We may split this, but we'll see. Anyway. The ranch was just what they were looking for. It was tucked away, protected by a high ridge to the north, a lazy creek to the south, and plenty of green pasture land for cattle. They could leave behind the chatty, gossip mill, small-town life they were living in New Mexico. Tom and Ellen Gorman and their 2 children were going to be very happy on the ranch they just purchased. The 480-acre property needed about a year of effort to bring it back to prime condition, but that was nothing to a hard-working family like the Gormans. After 7 years sitting dormant, with only minor repairs to fence lines by the wealthy, elderly Salt Lake City owners who had virtually abandoned it, the new family would breathe new life into this ranch. But something else, some other life force, had different plans. Not long after starting their new life on the ranch, in broad daylight, on a mundane day, it appeared. Tom Gorman instantly knew, just from a glance, that the animal, about 400 yards out, loping towards them, was huge. Ellen noticed his gaze, stepped up questioningly to him, and Tom nodded towards the approaching beast. Ellen was puzzled. This was much too big to be a coyote. Wolf? Ellen uttered. Tom's father, Ed, joined them. The 3 watched the graceful animal approaching, taking a circuitous, snaking path. It then stopped about 50 yards away. Its fur was gray and clearly wet from the grass. There was no sign of aggression. It peacefully gazed at them without concern. But the Gormans, they were concerned. This animal was at least 3 times as big as any wolf they had ever seen. In its approach, its gaze, and lack of fear were bizarre behaviors for a wolf. Then it walked casually up to Ed Gorman. Maybe it's somebody's pet, Tom thought. The wolf stood nearly as high as Ed and Tom's chest. Now, both of them are 6 foot tall. Tom glanced 70 feet to his right, where his newly arrived Angus calves were corralled. He briefly felt conflicted, but relaxed when Ed reached out and petted the beast. Ellen looked quickly around for her children, Tad and Kate. They were a few yards away, standing on the flatbed truck. She called them over to see the apparently tame wolf with the piercing blue eyes and massive musculature. There was another curious onlooker, however. One calf stood at the corral fence, poking its head through the bars, not at all concerned about the strong scent the wolf exuded. Unlike the rest of the calves, bunched up, far from the wolf as possible, shifting nervously in the enclosed space. In an instant, the wolf darted towards the corral. It closed the 70-foot distance in a blink, and then the calf's head was firmly in its jaws. It yanked on it violently, trying to pull it through the bars, as the 300-pound animal bleated pitifully. Tom wasted no time and sprang into action. He closed in and delivered 2 powerful kicks to the ribs of the wolf. Ed followed up with a baseball bat in hand from their load of supplies. He struck the beast heavily on the back as it continued to pull on the panicking calf, now urgently screaming in pain. Still kicking, Tom yelled, "Get my magnum." Tad quickly retrieved the handgun from the flatbed. Tom took it, aimed, and squeezed. The sound echoed off the land. The round slammed into the wolf's ribs. It didn't pause. It didn't flinch. It didn't stop. Tom pumped 2 more rounds into the abdomen. Slowly, reluctantly, the beast let the calf go. It retreated, bleeding heavily, and collapsed in the back of the corral with the other calves. But the wolf stood tall. But Tom wasn't done. The beast was now 10 feet away. Tom carefully aimed for its heart and fired. There was no apparent effect. The beast looked unharmed, unconcerned. It moved off 20 more feet and stood looking, almost as peacefully and serenely as it had arrived. The Gormans all stood in shock. They all knew very well the power of a Magnum .357. It would have severely damaged the animal, if not killed it instantly. But it had no effect. The wolf had apparently absorbed the rounds. There were no wounds, no blood. The wolf glanced briefly at the corral, as if considering another go at the animals within. Tom ordered Tad now to get his .30-06. Trustworthy Tad retrieved his father's rifle. Tom took aim, thinking this would surely bring down the beast. It was incredibly effective against elk, which are massive creatures. Tom fired. The distinct sound of bullets striking bone was unmistakable, but the wolf recoiled only slightly, backed off another 10 feet, but did not go down. It stood as placidly as before. Ed Gorman cursed. Ellen began to cry. They knew what it should look like, but it was perfectly healthy. Tom fired again. This time, a sizable chunk of flesh flew backward from the exit wound, plopping sickly into the grass. But still, no real effect. Now, perhaps tired of all the noise, the wolf turned away and trotted across the grass. Tom decided to give chase. He and Tad took off west, the wolf having a 100-yard head start. It was heading for a copse of cottonwoods. They slowly lost ground as the wolf easily trotted ahead, despite them still being able to see it. At 300 yards, it reached a patch of Russian olive trees bordering the creek. Even if they lost sight of it, Tom could see it was leaving prints he could follow as he pursued, although he saw no blood. They reached the brambly grove of Russian olives. They were slowed by the stickers and interwoven undergrowth, but once through the brush, they stopped to listen. Nothing. They had run about a mile and were winded. With the tracks in sight, they continued towards the creek. They then came to a clearing on the approach to the river. It was a muddy area, and the tracks were ahead of them, clear as day. They followed, but were soon taken aback. The muddy tracks, some 2 inches deep from the heavy animal, suddenly stopped. No more tracks. It was as if the animal had disappeared into thin air. Did it leap the rest of the way? Did it backtrack within its own tracks and take another path? Tom and Tad found no plausible explanation for the tracks to simply end. All they could ultimately do was walk back home without satisfactory answers, and certainly no wolf carcass, even if there should have been one several times over. And this, John, is just the beginning of the Gorman family ordeal.
That is some weird and wild stuff. Should we pause here and talk about the story, or do you want to move ahead? Or how are you?
What are your observations? We'd stop. What are your thoughts on that? That's the defining story, right? And that's the one I had originally thought was, it. Like, this was the thing. And I mean, that's a pretty fantastic story, but there's more. You'll see there's more.
Yeah, I do have thoughts. Let's start with the woo. Let's start with the high strangeness here. You know, the fact that, well, but even then you got a list of things to choose from. But let's start with the easy one about the bullets not taking effect. You know, I'm reminded of how, you know, way back when we started this thing, I pitched hey, how would you go hunt Bigfoot? And you said, no, let's not do that. Even though I had a guy ready to come in and say, yeah, I can tell you about 30-06.
I don't think I ever said no.
Well, maybe, but you talked me out of it. You talked me out of it.
Okay.
But, you know, that's the point of that pitch was if you've got a physical creature that its paws and pelts and claws and teeth, you know, we've got the technology to take something like that down.
Yeah.
Anything.
When you're dealing with Newtonian physics,
right.
It's a beast of this size. It equates to something we've hunted regularly.
Yeah.
Other firearms have taken this. You need a 30-06 to take down an elk, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you equate it to a Sasquatch.
There
you go.
And
Bob's your uncle.
And the guy I was going to bring in for that is somebody who has hunted elk.
Put him on the backlog.
And he can speak to that kind of thing about you know, how you choose what you use to go after big game on the North American continent at least. But you know, and if it walks, if it swims, mankind has killed it. I mean, we've killed whales. It is interesting when you run into these stories. And that's the other thing I want to segue to now. This is not our first potentially supernatural beast that has been bulletproof. That was one of the reasons I liked the Gettysburg gorilla story. As it was sort of a good entree into that issue of, well, sometimes Newtonian physics don't work on these things.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? While we're paused, I wouldn't mind remarking on, there is so much, as we'll see, right? There's a lot here. We're not going to, we're covering this over, it's probably going to end up being 5 episodes. But while we're paused, I'd like to remark on the strangeness of the human activity. First of all,
I was going to get there eventually.
First of all, petting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That struck me.
Second of all, this is not like it's an extra 3 or 4 inches hands tall like a horse. This is.
You saw me over here trying to
I know. I saw.
With my hand go, all right, where does that come up to?
That's where the chest of an animal. Would you reach your hand out and pet a wolf?
Not a wolf. No.
So. What I'm driving at is there's almost a mesmerism going on here.
I would agree with that.
And you'll see this throughout. There will be instances where I pause and I ask questions leading or pointing to what is happening in the minds of the people. Is there habituation? Is there influence? You know, why there was concern, but was it concern in hindsight? So, you know what I mean? Like, in the moment,
I know what you're saying.
So there's a lot of disconnect between the way people act and then maybe how we hear it as a story.
So when they first see the canine, they think, oh, is it a coyote? No, it's too big to be a coyote.
Yeah, immediately.
Right.
In a few short seconds, they can look at it.
Let's start with the behavior there. So strangely enough, believe it or not, in the last few weeks, my dad found a coyote in Gainesville. He walked out.
I believe that.
He walked out his back door,
yeah,
and startled something, and he thought maybe it was a dog, but he had a good enough look at it for long enough as it darted off. He said, "No, it's a coyote." And he was still like, "Oh, I don't want to be near a coyote because they're wild and they could snap and blah."
It could be rabid.
Right. All those things, and those are normal human thoughts to have when you encounter a wildlife predator of this sort, and it is a predator,
and this
no matter what.
Your dad's not a guy who spent his life in the woods.
No,
this is not a hunter man. But what I'm saying is he's a man, and a man and women have an innate sense, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's, well, let me put it this way. You can't paint with that broad brush. I would say many have that innate sense. Some don't. But I think in general, when you see something, you can say what it's not. You know what I mean? Like, he knew it wasn't just a dog. Anyway, I find this fascinating.
Yeah,
and this
thing turns out to be huge. I mean, that's
massive.
If you're
it's very big.
If it's up to there on standing, how long is it? That is a big animal. I don't want to be near that.
Right.
I mean, and if this were a national parks PSA, they'd be reminding you, don't get that close to the wildlife when they're that big, because they just have to brush against you and knock you over to hurt you.
Yeah.
It's a really weird interaction. And you make a good point about the human engagement.
Yeah.
Reaching out. Yes. So they talk about some different emotional reactions, like, maybe it's a pet because it's not doing anything.
And why would you ask that? What kind of pet is that? First of all, your immediate thought should be, why is it that goddamn big?
Yeah.
Agreed. The other thing is, when Ellen's looking for her kids, and when I'm reading the book for the first time, I'm like, oh, she's going to tell him to go inside the house. She's like, come on over.
Yeah, that's weird too, isn't it?
And see the dog with the pretty blue eyes.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And I think that there is some sort of, there is some oddity in it, the effect on people's thinking.
You're just talking about the people. Wolves are not solitary creatures.
Not typically. Well, not typically. The lone wolf is a thing. It's one that's been booted to hunt on its own.
And they don't,
for whatever
typically
reason.
Those lone wolves don't survive long without the pack because they're pack hunters. But
they can still hunt. It's just that they've just been booted for whatever reason from the pack.
But that should be a clue to the human being that this is odd.
There's lots.
And it could be more dangerous because of that, because it's probably more desperate without its social structure.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, is these are people that know animals.
Yeah.
He clearly has 2 firearms that lets us know he knows what he's doing with them.
Yeah.
They all
and these are
responding.
Typical farm implement firearms.
These are experienced people. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. Now, let's move on. We'll see. You'll see lots of disconnects.
Okay. We'll move on.
Yeah. Now, do you remember how only in hindsight did Thomas Winterton put certain pieces together that illustrated a weird picture, some strange realization that something was off about the ranch? Well, the Gormans were no different, as we saw right there. I mean, immediately you'd think, okay, this is strange. But they're cattle ranchers. These are practical people. Now, they, like Thomas Winterton, are not looking for the paranormal. And although some early signs, which we're about to talk about, showed something strange, would you have been alerted, or would you, John, would you have written this off with some very easy explanation? I don't know. The wolf, I don't know. Think about it as we move through it. And they're like, what would you do?
It was just a bear.
It's just a bear.
It was just a big cuddly bear.
Swamp gas.
It was a cuddly bear who was plagued with swamp gas.
Yeah. It was a rabid rabbit that had eaten too much clover. Okay. Now, as we mentioned, the ranch was a good, fair price, but littered with trash and disused. The main pasture had trees and many rocks throughout, but that can be managed easily with some labor. It was clearly a beautiful place, had good bones, as they say. So why was it abandoned? Now, upon entering the ranch house for the very first time, something strange was immediately apparent. Every door had several heavy-duty deadbolts on both the inside and the outside. All the windows were bolted. Each end of the house had a heavy-duty steel ring attached, apparently used to chain large dogs. Now, the current owner held on to the ranch for well over 40 years, but now seemed very eager to get rid of it. And strangely, in the real estate contract, the binding legal document, the previous owners stipulated, quote, no digging on the land without prior warning to the previous owners.
All right. Well, obviously, having seen an episode or two of the TV show that comes so much later than this, I'm like, that stands out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrupt your story, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, even you who don't like the show, that was something Thomas regularly said early on when digging was sort of the thing they wanted to do. All right. So is this perfectly normal? What would you have done if you saw that in your contract? Or would you just say, it's just crazy people? Would you say, what's this? So what's this all about? Previous owners? Are they just paranoid people? Are they elderly and afraid, super cautious? give them time maybe to accept how the ranch might look after digging a hole because, I don't know, they hold some deep emotional attachment to the place? Strange, but would you have declined to buy given these circumstances? Again, it's weird, but not many people would look deeply into this. Rational explanations are certainly one simple assessment away, right?
Well, sure. I mean, I have to wonder how much legal enforcement could have been done by the previous owner, or if the new owner decided to dig.
I guess you could be taken to court.
I guess, but
and you'd have to prove how did you know they dug a hole? But
yeah, I mean back here east, just you have one owner at a time on the property, and they have all the rights. They have the bundle of rights to everything on that land. But as you get further west, those rights change.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
so it's hard for me to say, but it does strike me. It's been a while since we brought that legal perspective back in, but I have to. That does it strikes me as odd, even in a contractual standpoint.
Well, right? I think it's nothing more to say they thought enough of it to put it in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's significant.
Now,
whether it's enforceable or not is anyone's guess.
Well, I'm being temporarily completely rational. My other question is, has anybody gone back and found the previous owners to talk to them? Has any investigative
Well, they said there were
done that?
Possibly. They didn't mention it in the book.
It hit me. It's like, oh, that's the wrong question to ask because it'll bring this to a screeching halt. But I'm going to ask. I'm just going to throw it out there.
I mean, it's just another detail that we could hunt down.
Right.
It wasn't mentioned in the book. I might have mentioned it, but they're elderly. They're probably gone by now.
No, that may be. Yeah, I understand. I was just curious if anybody
even before them
tried to track them down. Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe in their papers.
Maybe,
I don't know. Maybe she's holding on, and when she dies, it'll all come out.
I don't want to be. I'm not trying to be the killjoy here. It just hit me.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay.
That's why we're doing this. Now, Tom and Ellen, they glossed over these idiosyncrasies. But before you write them off, even subconsciously as dim or pastoral or quaint or naive, Tom is described by the authors as having razor-sharp intellect, strong intuition, and of being a competent, recognized cattle rancher, and that's no small feat. Ellen is highly intelligent with excellent business acumen, as were the children, Tad and Kate. These are well-adjusted and excelling children in their schoolwork. So these are normal people who really saw nothing to stop them from realizing this dream on the ranch. And I don't mean to be over affluent about them, but I'm trying to paint the picture. These are normal people. Now, if they had issues like one's an alcoholic, one's a drug addict, it certainly would change the picture a little bit. But that's just not the case.
I would say
that's how they were presented.
Who among us really is normal?
I had somebody they will remain nameless, but I was speaking about some stories out of the Ohio Valley, and he goes, well, they do have a lot of, grain moonshine out there, as if to say they're all drunk and hallucinating. Yeah, and I'm like, give me a break.
We've talked about drunks are not seeing pink elephants.
Yeah, like when the days when I was having
alcohol,
I do not remember hallucinating.
No.
Yeah.
None of that stuff.
Now, what the Gormans did not know was that the ranch, surrounding properties, the towns, in fact, the entire Uinta Basin, as it is known as a geological region, has a long, enduring, strange paranormal history. Now, we're going to cover much of this history in an upcoming episode, but this area has been inhabited continually by humanity for well over 12,000 years.
12,000 years.
And when you consider all the fossilized dinosaur remains scattered through the mesas, life itself, consciousness itself, has been here a very long time. Presumably, so too has this high strangeness. Now, I'm just
dinosaur ghosts. Well, that's what I heard. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean ghosts experienced by dinosaurs, not ghosts of dinosaurs per se.
That for a reason. We'll see. Now, teasing a little bit of the history, and just here's a little bit of a laundry list for a teaser. UFOs, orbs and lights in the sky. I think we did this before. Buffalo soldiers. I mean, that's new to the story here. Mormons, Freemasons. How about Freemason buffalo soldiers? Did you see that one coming? There are curses. There are cryptid snakes. And mundane, run-of-the-mill cryptids like Sasquatch.
Sasquatch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty boring.
Whatever.
Compared to giant wolves.
Cryptid snakes and Freemason buffalo soldiers.
Yeah. You mentioned Mormons, and that occurred to me earlier. That, do we
Those
know
cryptids?
Do you know if the? No, I'm not gonna insult.
No, I could.
But do we know if the Gormans were Mormon?
Excuse me?
If
the Gormans were, I don't know.
Did their religious affiliation come up at all?
Come up.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I mean, they were out of New Mexico, and that doesn't mean they couldn't be. But they moved into the area.
Well. Okay.
So probably not.
And
but that's a good question.
And again, I go back to the owners ahead of them.
Yeah.
Just curious. Yeah.
Well, and I mentioned Mormons, not to single them out, but there are paranormal aspects. Well, I should say all religions have paranormal, but the Mormons are contemporaries in this area, and they've got some stories as well.
Yes,
there's plenty of stories that the Mormons can tell you.
Yes.
All right, now let's move on. I couldn't resist quoting directly from the last page of chapter 3, the chapter called "The Basin." Quote: "The Gormans had escaped the frying pan of a small-town gossip and stepped into the terrifying fire of the unknown."
The unknown.
Yeah. Now, one day after their wolf encounter, Tom and Ellen's new neighbors told them casually that the Gormans Ranch was home to a pack of large wolves seen roaming there.
Okay.
Got that?
Yep.
Now, this provided...
Pack.
There you go. That settles it. There's a pack of large wolves seen roaming there.
And this... What year is this? Roughly?
This is mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
94, 95.
Okay.
All right. We're going to get that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, this provided some relief to the Gormans, right? Think about it. Oh, yeah, there's wolf pack on your property in that area. Okay. Now, thankful... that the Gormans were thankful they had not been part of some group hallucination or mass hallucination, as many skeptics would like to talk about. Now, they were still processing the event, but if others were also seeing wolves, it made it somewhat easier to accept.
Sure.
Still, it begs the question, how big are the wolves the neighbors seeing, right? How big are they?
Yeah. And what are they eating to get so big?
Is it the
hopefully it's not the Gormans' cattle.
You'll notice there were no cattle when you got here.
Yeah.
Now, are they witnessing the same phenomenon, but chalking it up to their large size to, I don't know, a trick of the light? Or is this the so-called norm in these parts? People are adaptable. We're remarkably resilient. Are people just now habituated to these massive wolves? Well, a few weeks later, Ellen had a singular experience. Now, she had just arrived home and closed the access road gate behind her. She got into her Chevette, ready to cover the 1-mile drive to the house, and noticed movement to her left. She turned, and there was another wolf within 30 feet of the car window, and it was huge. It moved in and was suddenly right outside her car window. Its head was taller than the car, stooping to see her. Now, like last time, it appeared calm, even friendly, with those piercing blue eyes. But the twilight held a new weirdness. Standing further back from the car was a black, dog-like creature. Like the wolf, its body was big, and the head was bigger than it should be for its body. Now, this strikes me as unnerving and surreal, causing that unique emotional state. Have you ever felt that feeling like something's off?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, in where, suddenly, like, you've been struck with some news from reality, and there's this surreal feeling. Now, horror movies use this to great effect when designing creatures. Things will have elongated limbs or wide, unnatural smiles, large eyes, and it's supposed to make you feel unsettled. And now, deep in our brains, where we hold these expectations of what we should see, a conflict erupts, a big, emotional conflict between what you see and what you expect to see. Now, I've got some pictures here that I had AI do for me. And I think this is what Ellen was seeing, even if I did embellish the teeth.
This is the dog?
This is the dog.
Okay. And then what'd you do? Like plug in
I just said,
the prompt as pretty much out of the book?
Give me a Doberman-like dog in scrub with its head that's bigger than its body.
I was so the
and
reason
make it unnerving or
the
something.
reason I'm over here clicking away on my mouse is I have something in my folder I want to share with you in just a second because I think it's relevant to this too.
Okay.
But yeah, that is an unnerving canine.
It's weird looking,
and it looks like a big demonic Doberman. So now I'm in the mood of a black dog, a hellhound.
Yeah.
But if you will forgive me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just indulge me just a second while I try to move this into something you can see. I'm going to drop it into our shared folder at the top if I can do this correctly. Hold on.
Go ahead. I'll navigate over there.
All right, you go over there because I think I'm trying to remember where this image originally came from.
Is it in your pictures folder?
It will be in a second. It was actually on one of my... Okay, I'm dropping it now. Hold on. I'm going to try to drop it now.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Just so you know, we'll put a picture of the dog that I created in the show notes.
Because I think this, I want to say this picture, if I can ever get it to do what I want it to do, came out of this story.
Yeah, where is it currently?
It's on my computer right now. It was in my personal Facebook.
Okay.
All right. Well, won't I do what I want it to do? It usually goes over just fine, but today we're having a technical difficulty. Keep going. I'll drop it in there and tell you when it's there. All right, keep reading. Keep reading.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so back to the story. We've got this big dog. It is, it's got the same sort of, gargantuanism or giganticism.
It just showed up. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. Okay. Oh, look at that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
I think
now that looks like just a normal wolf with the blue eyes, but it's massive.
Size.
Yeah, it's massive.
And I think it comes. I think this original image came from the Skinwalker Ranch story with the Gormans, and with somebody else's envisioning of some piece of this story, whether it was about the wolf or about how she saw this black dog. I'm not sure.
Well, there's two things there. There's the wolf that's at the car door, and then off to the side is this dog-like creature.
Your wolf at the car door is what sparked my memory about this.
I think that's a good image of that.
Yep.
We'll put that in there too.
Okay.
Well, anyway.
I'll leave that there then.
Yeah, I mean, you and I might have this same reaction. Here's what Ellen did. She floored it. She sped away. Now, she was grateful that they did not follow, and that ended her strange encounter with the big dog with the big head, and then the second run-in with the wolf. But this ignited a fire in her to give the local tribal office in Fort Duchesne a piece of her mind. Now, she would ask them to have residents control their pet dogs and wolves. Now, for cattle ranchers, predators were bad. That's a huge threat. Now, later, Ellen would be flummoxed by the blank stares at the tribal office. No one owned or had wolves or large dogs in the area around the ranch. And it was then that she learned the history of wolves in Utah. Now, the last wolf in Utah was shot dead in 1929. The Gorman giant gray wolf encounter happened in 1994, a full year before wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone Park in 1995.
Right.
I even remember that happening.
Yep. And yes. Okay. Continue.
Now, Yellowstone is in western Wyoming and is about 350 miles north.
Yeah, and it's outside of the range of the packs. The packs do range outside the park proper.
Okay.
But
I respect that view, right? And I believe that.
Yeah, but that's outside, yeah.
And in December 2002, one of those wolves that was let loose, probably tagged, although I didn't get that specifically, would be caught in a trap in Ogden, Utah, about 180 miles west of the ranch. So something, or one of them, had roamed down that far.
Well, if it's a lone wolf, like you said, they get kicked out and they have to exit the territory.
As they grow their territory, they're going to migrate a little bit. But they're not going to just walk 350 miles over several days to get somewhere. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I agree.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the odds of wolves on the ranch at this time are slim. Now, some will say, hey, nature finds a way.
Yeah.
And normally, I would agree. Nature does weird things. It doesn't always agree with our academic point of view on things.
And I think you have to say the way it was said. It was nature finds a way.
Yes. Well, nature finds a way.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, it's chaos theory. You zoom out far enough, you'll see a pattern. But let's not forget, North American wolves are not on average 5.5 feet tall at the shoulders.
No, but no
matter how you cut it, they're not that big.
No, they are.
They can be big, but they're not that big.
They can and often are bigger than domestic dogs.
But we're not talking about dogs.
And somewhat bigger than people expect, but they're not as big.
They're more likely to be scroungy looking, thin and emaciated. I mean, there could be the odd one, but not 5.5 feet.
No, I'm not saying that.
Now, incidentally, there were WOUs. Wolves of unusual size.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah. Come on, tell us, because it's rare that I do that.
Right.
What movie was it?
That one was Princess Bride.
Okay, good. Thank you.
With the rodents of unusual
size.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, it's rare that I make a cultural reference.
That was good. I appreciate that.
There is another cultural reference that I make, but not by my choosing.
Well, you've made two in the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
You've made a Jurassic
only
Park
because
reference.
the writers did such a good job with the book.
All right.
Now, there were wolves of unusual size on the North American continent. Now, during the era of megafauna, animals known as dire wolves, and that's Anoscion dirus, have been discovered. That was the Latin species name. The dire wolves have been discovered on the in the fossil record. Now, they went extinct 13 to 10,000 years ago during the end of the last ice age.
And it's been inhabited 12,000 years, which falls right into the middle of that range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also known as the Younger Dryas period.
No, not the Younger Dryas.
We'll get back to that.
Yep.
Now, some might think the wolf on Skinwalker Ranch is a dire wolf, piercing through a time portal of some type. Right? And normally I would entertain that idea. Like, okay, well, we've talked about portals. We've talked about time slips. Maybe, is that what's happening? But the truth is, the dire wolf was not really that much bigger than the modern wolf, Canis lupus. A dire wolf was maybe 8 to 10 inches taller at the shoulder and 30 to 50 pounds heavier, approximately. Mm-hmm. And though the dire wolf was stockier, by imagery that we've created, it does not stand chest high to a man at the shoulders. It doesn't, even the dire wolf.
Right.
As big as it is, and it is often embellished in size. It wasn't that big.
It was not as big as the dire wolves in Game of Thrones.
Right, that's correct.
And there are at least two representative, modern, because scientists have quote unquote brought back the dire wolf by breeding. Mm-hmm. It's not really a wolf or a dire wolf, but it is a representation of that through breeding dogs. Yeah. And then I think there's even a dog breed that was originally intended to be sort of about the same size, and the name of it's escaping me. But the fact that you can breed dogs into the rough size approximation of a dire wolf gives you an idea that this is not like the King Kong of wolves.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, just riffing here quickly, the biggest dog, like I've seen recently a news story about it. It was, oh boy, I'm going to blank on the breed, but it's a super rare dog that's probably only going to live 5 years, and it's probably dead by now.
Right,
this
because
was an
it's
old
so
story.
big.
It's so big, it just cannot, it just
the
does
physiology
not have
of the
a
dog.
longevity.
Right.
But even that was just approaching the size that we're talking about. So this is. I'm saying, no, the Skinwalker wolf is some breed unto itself, a distortion like the big-headed dog. But again, we're talking about the paranormal here.
Yeah,
we're trying to, I mean, we're looking at the lens of what we're used to, but we just have to accept this is why it's paranormal and strange. Now, for what it's worth, very quick aside, Younger Dryas. In future episodes, we're going to get back to this time period, as there is much to say about that period of destruction that's interesting. So we're going to come back there. Now, let's keep going. Now, Ellen would have other weird things happen. Like, during a nighttime stroll on the property, she heard and felt the whoosh of something large fly over her head, enough to make her duck from the vague shape she couldn't quite make out. Now, she kept that and other smaller things to herself, but soon something more insidious began to plague her. Things started going missing. Now, after setting something down, even for a moment, she would return and it would be gone, only to turn up later in an odd place. But not easily explainable things, like car keys. This was much more immediate, like her towel and brush were there when she got in the shower, only to go missing moments later when she was done. This type of thing happened a few times a week. Well, but who would you blame for this? Yes, that's right, the kids. Of course, the little jerks.
Of course, and I'm going to blame those kids in a minute anyway for the poltergeist activity.
That's right, exactly, yeah.
It's always tied to a kid.
Yeah, all that emotional energy, little pranksters. Yeah. But Ellen knew her kids did not behave that way. So she quickly moved on to worrying about her own memory. Anything but something truly weird.
Well, these people have to be younger than we are now, and because I can totally sympathize with that. Like, where did I put my phone?
That's where you go.
Where did I put my glasses? Where did I put my wallet? Swear it was right here just a second ago.
Nothing weird. But then, one evening, Tom stormed into the house, demanding to know who took his post digger. Now, a post digger is a 70-pound steel digging bar. Who's going to run off with that just to prank someone? And so it was them.
Those damn kids.
They're running off with my post digger again, taking it to school. But Ellen confessed to losing things to Tom, and this upset Tom greatly. And it was at this point when the strangeness now was impossible to ignore. They're starting to wake up. So where are these missing things turning up? Well, Tom found the post digger 20 feet up a tree.
His 70-pound post digger? Oh, okay.
Ellen located several missing boxes of cereal in the microwave, don't you know? Mm-hmm. See what I mean?
Well, who among us has not put that? Put the cereal in the microwave.
Maybe.
All right.
These are not logical misplacings. No. This is not your subconscious autopilot setting something down and forgetting. No. This appears like highly planned mischief. But to what end? Now, if it was purposefully to cause strong emotions, it was working. Okay, now let's fast forward to a fine evening on the ranch around dusk. After all, the desert can still be beautiful, strange or not. Tom and his son Tad, and Tom's 14-year-old city slicker nephew Dave were walking the pastures checking on the cattle. Now, Tom suddenly noticed lights in a distant part of the ranch. An RV, he thought, a recreational vehicle, large and boxy. Now, Tom had seen this before and had let it go. Sometimes people trespass to hunt on others' property. But tonight, Tom was not having it. He would run them off for good. He and the boys started walking in that direction. When about 200 yards from the vehicle started moving away. Now, Tom wondered how they saw them coming. and he assumed they must have some night vision goggle technology.
Hey, kids, let's go run off the poachers with night vision goggles.
Well, no, he assumed the poachers had night vision goggles.
I know, but it's not.
Let's run them off.
I'm actually, serious point there, again, about the human behavior. I can see him making the choice to talk to them if it's just him or he's armed, but taking the two kids, including one who isn't real familiar with it, it's questionable judgment. Well, but maybe not when it comes to the paranormal.
I guess, I don't know. Yeah, I see what you're saying, right? Yeah. That's the human behavior part. That's a good point. I'm coming up with explanations, like chances are it's a local guy, It's like, come on, John, you can't be on my property hunting. Can you move along?
Right. Yes.
But you're right. That is a very good point. That's one I didn't pick up on.
And when he assumes they have night vision goggles, that ought to be another step back. Like,
well,
okay, if these folks are that well equipped, maybe I don't want to be messing with them.
Well, you can see that when things got weird, he went to a mental explanation. Didn't he?
Yes.
He quickly.
Okay. Well, I don't want to derail you. You can continue.
All right. Well, it started moving away. They're like, oh my gosh, how did they see us? Well, then they quickened their pace to catch up with the quote-unquote RV. Mm-hmm. Now, Tom was angry that they would probably be snapping fence lines as they tried to get away with this vehicle. Now, as they pursued, Tom realized a few things. He couldn't hear an engine, and the vehicle seemed to be gliding over the land.
That seems very suspicious.
Okay?
Yeah.
And he said, now surely the rutted dry earth would cause it to bounce along as it picked up speed. Can you imagine?
Dried earth? Don't you think there'd be like a dust cloud? There's no mention of one.
Yeah, all the things.
It's almost like it's hovering.
And the answer to that? The answer is no. No. Okay. John is emoting.
I am emoting.
And he's overdoing it. And he's making me laugh.
I'm sorry. It's a very serious issue here. I mean, poachers, alien poachers, very serious.
I guess there is the morbid giggle, right?
Yeah. It's serious. Got to break that tension. Go on.
Well, the RV kept its 200-yard lead, and the guys were running hard now, trying to catch it. To their surprise, it appeared to rise up as it moved away. Still soundless, the thing seemed to be levitating. Now, but no matter, Tom thought. It was trapped. It was heading towards the tall, thick Russian olive trees. It won't get through there. Now, you might guess what happened. It continued to rise and flew clean over the trees and away. Now, silhouetted against the sky, they saw it more clearly. And it was more of a boxy refrigerator with a white headlamp and red taillights. And away into the evening sky it went.
I think that's weirder than what we had before. That's really okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
And guess what? City Slicker Dave was not allowed to visit Uncle Tom anymore.
But I like Uncle Tom.
Yeah, well, Dave was not. Dave, and there's lots of details I'm leaving out, as you might imagine. But
I want to go see the UFOs.
Dave was very upset.
I'm sure Dave was.
He was not used to being on the ranch.
Was it a case of Dave not being allowed, or Dave saying, "I'm not going there to get
abducted"? Begrudgingly, he was sent there to just kind of, visit family. But then
I don't want to be probed.
I guess he told his story to his parents, and they said, "No way.
Sure,
we'll probe you at home," is what the father said. No, I take that back. I don't know them. That's not what happened.
That was a bridge too far. You should definitely bleep that.
Should I?
I'm teasing you. You don't have to.
No, it was a joke. It was a joke. I don't know these people. They don't have last names. City Slicker Dave. We don't know who he is.
Could be anything.
All right. Now, on a separate evening, the flying fridge would make another appearance. This time to Tom and Ellen. Now, it was coincident with a strange metal-on-metal clanging sound. Now, these were apparently separate phenomena, as the sound came from the mesa, and the fridge appeared in the pasture, but it could be sort of the sound bouncing. Anyway, it again played coy and kept its distance. As they neared it, it moved away silently. In that eerie, floaty, no sound, Oz effect kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this time it was less frenetic chasing and more observation. But after looking away for only a few seconds to sort of try and triangulate the metal sound they were hearing, the fridge just disappeared. Now, they searched in vain for any signs that something so large had been sitting and their pasture grass. Now, there was no more denying. The ranch was an epicenter of very strange occurrences indeed. Now, additionally, Tom and Ellen, who normally kept to themselves, started learning in bits and pieces their ranch was cursed. But they felt no one would give them a straight answer. Now, another time. On a bitter cold winter night, Tom, now wiser to the phenomenon, was about to head inside. He had been out and looking for signs of more activity, looking to catch it in the act, trying to figure it out. But on this luckless night, he trudged back to the house, walking in the eerie, snowy light of a post-blizzard world, when he caught movement over the mesa.
Now, is this the mesa made famous on the TV show?
There's a mesa that runs the back of the northern edge of the property.
That is why I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively one long mesa ridge. I'm not sure it's exactly triangulated with the digging.
All right.
But nonetheless, Tom saw, when he turned, an aircraft about 30 to 40 feet long, silently, slowly moving along. It appeared to be a miniature version of an F-117 or a B-2, and I provided a picture in case. Yeah, and just think of triangular craft. But still, he said it felt familiar and recognizable as a modern craft, only smaller. Now, it moved slowly and only about 20 feet off the ground. Multicolored lights danced along the ground, reflecting off the white of the snow. But for some reason, the lights were not obviously projected from the craft. Now, it seemed to be moving in sweeping, searching swaths. But searching for what? Now, Tom crouched down to remain undetected. He watched it go about its search. But Tom was cold and tired. He stretched, and then the craft stopped. The lights went out. It appeared to turn and face him. For several eerie seconds, they stared each other down. But then the craft slowly turned and drifted away over the mesa, and Tom went inside. Now, seems that one can adapt, even to the highly strange, too. But another thought occurred to me. Now, if some animals hunt by sight or movement, do the craft hunt by emotion? And was the craft going about its business, whatever that may be, unaware of Tom because Tom was now habituated to the strangeness of the ranch? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it didn't notice him until he had stretched. And maybe in his stretch, he's like, God, I'm so tired. And the emotion caused a ripple and caused the craft to detect him because he said when he stretched, it noticed him. Almost as if, while Tom was there, it didn't see him because emotionally he was not perturbed. So I don't know. I'm playing with the idea that because what we've seen in other in other realms, what we understand is that it is emotion that causes the ripples in the ether, so to speak. And it could be the case that whatever purpose these things have, it wants to cause emotion. It wants to cause upset. So just playing with those ideas. I don't know if you have any immediate responses
not
to
along,
that. But
no, not
there's
along
more.
those lines.
There's more to pick up
Yeah,
on and to illustrate this.
I was reading ahead to see where you were going with this.
Yeah, it's okay.
To see if any of my other random thoughts might mesh, but
yeah, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, it could be an emotional thing. I'm not saying it isn't.
Well, we've heard
I
that.
just don't really have an opinion one way or the other.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
I see where you're going with that. I think that's an interesting line of thought.
Yeah. Okay. But wait, there's more.
Of course.
All right. Now, the many craft of the ranch made an appearance for Ellen, too. Now, she seemed to encounter things the moment she arrived home. Now, is she some sort of emotional beacon? You know, she arrives home, maybe she's had a rough day, maybe she has a job that's rough, and she comes on the ranch and it's like, ooh, she's back. Here she is. She's back. She wants to play. Look how ramped up she is. Yep. Look how amped up she is.
Or we're going to play with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the craft wound up pacing her car as she drove the mile back to the empty house. So that's where the wolves encounter her, or the dog and the wolf. Remember?
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like there's a detail that I'm curious about that's missing here. Is she seeing the same kind of craft? The triangles?
In this case, she was seeing. In this
Okay.
case, it was the triangular craft.
Okay.
Now I don't remember
Or more like the
description.
refrigerator. That's why I'm asking.
Well, we'll get to
or
that.
Is it
That's
something
coming
else
up.
entirely? Right.
The many crafts. So it was the triangular craft that had paced the car as she went back to the empty house. And I say that because he's not there. Nobody's home. Now that same evening, she looked out the window and saw the RV parked in the pasture again. See?
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I did miss that detail. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay for missing it. I just got curious because the triangular craft thing is, especially in the 90s, a big deal. Have you heard of the TR-3A and 3B?
Yes.
Black Manta.
Yeah, those are supposed to be man-made.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and what you could be seeing would be test runs. On the other hand, it could be just that it's because it's in the psyche, it can reproduce it because it's new and novel. Because we've seen that, right? With the airships of the 1900s or the 1890s.
That is a theory.
You know, the dirigibles with power and so forth.
That is a Keelian or Valian view that the phenomenon is somehow mimicking something that would be familiar
but just on the edge, on the horizon of technology.
Yes.
And when we say the horizon of technology, a lot of the theories are that these are breakaway human civilizations creating these technologies.
That is another whole theory. Yes.
Yeah, we got another theory there.
Yep.
But anyway,
it is a crypto-terrestrial theory.
Yeah. So anyway, she's sloughed off that she was getting paced by the triangular craft, goes into the house, looks out the window later on and sees this RV parked in the pasture. Now, but this time she saw within it through a large window. Okay? The RV is there, and in the side of the RV is a large window, and she's looking inside. Now, inside the brightly lit space was a desk. Okay? This gets weird.
That does get weird.
Hang on.
Okay.
You know how weird desks are.
Yep.
Look at these weird desks here. Then a dark-clad figure with headgear entered and sat behind the desk. That's because, that's what they do. Yeah, it could be. He's got headgear, they said, but they get silent.
Yep, okay.
Ellen watched him, but then this dark figure seemed to notice her. Now he stood and came to a door-like opening in the RV.
The force is with you, young Ellen.
Directly back at her.
I'm sorry.
No matter how hard we try, you're just not going to take this seriously.
I'm sorry. I'm sure it's been a week.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Yeah. No, it's a serious. It is serious, but I'm.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I get it.
I'm sorry.
It's Darth Vader. Darth Vader.
Too much levity for you? Okay.
Ellen estimated him to be about 7 feet tall. So there you go. There's your Darth Vader. Now, on this night, Tom was hours away on business, but she called him hysterical, and he raced back driving all night. Now, that morning, they examined the pasture and found footprints in the mud. Now, the footprints were not typical of military or commercial varieties with ridged tread patterns, but they were 18 inches long, matching Ellen's rough height calculation. Now, for the Gormans, this seemed to push the phenomenon into even more dangerous territory, and this intuition may have been accurate. So UFO lore has seen the flying fridge before, during encounters in Brazil. There, it's called the chupa, or in translated, that's the sucker.
The sucker,
and you're familiar with that from chupacabra, which is goat sucker. And I'm not sure why they call it the sucker. I thought about it earlier. Maybe I have an idea. It'll come back to me. But the thing is, people are injured and killed after getting hit with the headlight from the chupa.
After getting hit with a beam from the headlight?
There's a beam. Okay. They get hit with it. And then later on, I think I didn't read too deeply into it, but I think they're irradiated, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And that's something that we've seen in the lore. We saw that in the Loch Raven episode. We talked about that.
And I think it's fairly common in the South American UFO
lore.
Well,
and the next sentence, so there was quickly, in the 80s, Jacques Vallée himself traveled there to investigate the wave of these events in Brazil. Now, there's a lot to dig into in Brazil, so let's pin it. But their stories are not as mysterious so much as dangerous. There is, now I'm blanking, but there's an island just on the eastern coast off of Brazil where there are multiple stories of craft coming out of the water and attacking people, taking skin samples from them. Mm-hmm. It's very aggressive. People have been killed. So that for whatever reason, the phenomena in Brazil is a little more aggressive.
Yeah,
but we'll digress. We'll have to come back to that.
I've heard some stories about that, and I haven't heard what you just described. I don't know that I'm familiar with, but I've heard some other stories about Brazilian UFO encounters, and they do typically involve some people being hurt, not necessarily intentionally, which is also interesting, and they often involve military folks because Brazil, particularly in this period, military junta type government. So, a little more. Yeah, a little more aggressively X-Files.
It's a little more strange, and there's lots of speculation as to why. And I think Varginha is the name that comes to mind.
That was the one that came to mind.
That's one where there were sightings of a being that was running around the city that people had seen
by young women.
And it had ended up in the hospital and somehow disappeared. Yep. And I think James Fox did a movie on that. That's worth looking at. That was a good movie.
And it ends with the theory that the CIA went down and somehow paid the Brazilian government off to get the technology and bodies or whatever else were left. Yeah, there are, but that's just one of the better known ones up north here. There are a lot of ufologists in South America that have been equally diligent in capturing their stories the same way we do here. But of course, we're very egocentric here in the United States and don't like to go examining those stories outside as much as maybe we should.
Well, within the UFO community, there's very open exchange. The difference is down there, the governments are very open about it as well. Mm-hmm. They don't have the hangups that we have. They don't have a populace that's like sitting there saying none of this is real. Most people accept it. Culturally, people, we're the hung up ones. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're as a nation generally are skeptical because of the Church of Science has us believing things that we really probably shouldn't, at least as strongly as we do. So there's a balance. But anyway, we can maybe dig into that further when we cover Brazil.
Yes, much better done in that story.
Yeah, and we've met it. South America just is a whole other playground to look at. So much there. Anyway, let's get back on track. There's a new section we're starting. Now, maybe the absolute strangest, but somehow understandable or relatable. And this may seem confusing at first, but I'll get to it. The strangest phenomena Tom and his family witnessed was the appearance of a large, orange structure in the sky. And you're probably thinking, how is this understandable or relatable? All right, wait for it. Now, this was witnessed numerous times. And at times it would appear in the sky and would be flattened and elongated. Other times it would appear rounded. Now, it would come from the western sky and hover just above the copse of cottonwood trees where an abandoned homestead once stood. And the ruins are there. It's called Homestead 2. Now, it was always in the same place that it would appear. Now, one night, Tom used his rifle scope to view the structure. And to his astonishment, he appeared to be looking at another sky. Within the boundary of the structure, he saw a blue sky. Now, was he seeing a window into another world, another time? Now, Tom himself started wondering if what they had been dealing with all along were interdimensional phenomena. And this is where it started to occur to him what was actually happening. And we don't know what's actually happening, and we're trying to figure this out. But to me, that seems relatable and understandable, sort of a portal into another world. Now, if you didn't already predict, the next time Tom watched the orange window, it was not a sky, but a series of repeating concentric rings, echoing the edge of the structure, vanishing into the center, like an elongated tube. It was then he watched a craft, grow bigger within the frame and then emerge from it. The triangular craft silently turned and then disappeared into the Earth's nighttime sky. And the bottom line is, he witnessed a craft come through a portal. Now, interestingly, Tom related that the structure's varied shapes was due to the viewing angle. Now, he recalled seeing it on a particular night, but from his angle on the road, it was nearly invisible since he was seeing it from sideways on. Are you catching what's being described there? It just depends on the angle you're looking at.
Yes.
Depends on what you're going to get. And so it does indeed seem to suggest that it has a structure and it is dimensional, at least, height and width, but maybe not depth. And most interestingly, Tom seems to be describing an opening in space-time with only the opening or aperture visible, while the tube or the passage extends into some other place and cannot be seen by looking behind the structure. Now, do you know where we've seen this type of thing before? In Bugs Bunny cartoons, frankly.
Oh, sure. I'm the one that's not taking this seriously.
Well, I mean, this is the point where we say it's fantasy meeting the reality.
It is a good way to visualize this.
Yeah.
This is, and that's my whole point about bringing up pop cultural references, is that we have visualized many of these things in other ways that should make it more familiar to us. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking just. I guess it is another cultural reference, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when his rabbit hole gets frisbeed around, they're throwing it around, and he's still able to pop out of it wherever it lands. We've seen it in fantasy, but here Tom is describing it happening on his ranch. Now, finally, Tom noticed the orange window has always faced his ranch house. In other words, whenever he'd see it, it was in the same configuration. In that it would be facing his ranch house. And more so, anyone from the road some distance off would likely not see it directly. Now, he wondered, was this intentional or was this just coincidence? Anyway, now let's move on. Let's turn to the animals on the ranch. Now, there's a laundry list of strangeness most would be familiar with. And I'll give you the flavor and the highlights. Some of this I don't know who's listening, but some of these probably are familiar. And I'm going to try to minimize any unnecessary grisly details. You can get some pretty crazy descriptions in the book. Now, following a snowstorm, Tom gathered up his prized Angus and came up short by one. He searched everywhere, but finally discovered tracks leading off into the last location that she could be. And relieved, he followed, but quickly grew concerned when the tracks indicated that the calf was running from something. He rounded a corner of brush and saw that the tracks led into the center of a clearing, then stopped. No more tracks, no missing cow. He never found her. We've seen this before, except this time it's not the cryptid coming and going. It's one of his animals.
Mm-hmm. Tracks he would be very familiar with.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to
so much
see
so
them.
that and so much so that he can tell, there was walking or this was running.
Right.
He can see just by looking. Now 4 more cattle would disappear over the winter. Now the next event happened following a heavy few days of spring rain. Tom and Tad, both on horseback, were rounding up the herd when Tad spotted a heifer trying to climb a muddy embankment along the canal, the water that runs naturally through the property. Now, Tad made a note to go back once the others were wrangled. Now, he returned 20 minutes later, and the cow was lying motionless. The cow's entire rear end had been cut away or carved away. There was no blood, and the incisions were like scalpel cuts. Now, you'll recognize this as the hallmark of cattle mutilation. Now, all the very good, rational questions apply here, but no good answers were discovered. In fact, this is typical of the veritable rash of cattle mutilations across farms all over the West beginning in the 1970s. Tom was not unique. And we might pin this as well if we ever want to get to cattle mutilations. There's a whole lore on that.
Yeah, involves black helicopters and
and the theory that
laser
all
scalpels.
Cattle mutilation are government is what some thinkers are saying.
There's a government-based theory. There's an alien-based theory. There's a government alien conspiracy theory.
Yeah, there's like some weird meat trade going on. Yeah. Anyway, okay, now
everybody loves a good steak.
Elk have been taken, and the suggestion was that they're eating them. In one story, and that was
the suggestion is they're eating humans.
That's true.
It's all on the table.
It's all out there. Now we come to the ubiquitous orbs, the good old orbs. Okay,
finally something familiar.
Yeah. Now one evening, Tom and Ellen noticed a blue orb harassing their horses, flying around their heads. Then it came towards Tom and Ellen at an alarming rate of speed. It stopped and hovered about 15 feet off the ground. They had a chance to see it clearly, and it had a distinct and glassy hard edge and a swirling, intensely blue center. It gave off a crackling electrical sound. Now, it was about 2 to 3 times bigger than a baseball. Now, suddenly, both Tom and Ellen were overcome with the most profound sense of dread and fear.
Like a Monday morning.
Worse. 3 Mondays.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You will have 3 Mondays in a row.
Yeah. Their systems began pumping adrenaline into their bodies. Ellen, who was hyperventilating, finally snapped on a flashlight for some reason, and the orb instantly reacted, flying away, leaving them stricken. Now, the climb down from the adrenaline left them exhausted, weak, and drained. Now, what caused this irrational reaction? Now, it sounds very much like the fear and dread that drove Thomas Winterton off the ranch on our previous episode. If you remember, he was doing a mundane chore, like plowing the snow, and entered that area beyond the triangle and suddenly was stricken with fear.
Yes,
I do. Unimaginable.
On more than one occasion, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I mean, this was something that he had run into regularly, and he fled in fear. Now, the orbs showed up fairly regularly and currently somewhat less regularly on the television show. So we start looking forward to the show, and one might ask, well, Mike, are they showing up on the show? And they do. They do.
And even in my dabbling into that show, dipping in and out from time to time, I have seen them go gaga over an orb. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't call it. Is that necessary? I mean, they're going gaga. What does it mean?
Yeah, they go nuts over anything because that's what they do on the History Channel when they have potential proof of something. It's
okay.
Oh my God! Look, it's an orb. That's what they do.
Are you done?
I'm done, but I don't feel
that.
You're looking at me. You're looking at me in such a way. It's like, but
here's the thing. Here's why I would respond to it. Is that it would be one thing if it was when they provoke it and they expect it. That's when you get the reaction. I think you have to watch the whole show, but I know you don't want to. Anyway. So the orbs showed up fairly recently, and they do show up on the show. Now, one evening, they noticed an orb outside their house window. Now, as it passed, they watched the house lights dim and then return to normal brightness when the orb passed on. And I've not seen anything directly like that on the show, but what they do experience is quite a bit of technical issues on the show with power. So who knows if that's what is causing that. Okay. Now, finally, for this last encounter, it's important for us to know that Tom kept 3 working dogs on the ranch. Now, working dogs and pet dogs are vastly different. So this story may surprise some people if you don't know this. Now, on a particular night, Tom noticed a blue orb about 300 yards away in one of his pastures. It was about 10 feet off the ground, and to Tom it appeared to be intelligently moving about. Now, the orbs had come to signal trouble on the ranch, and Tom tensed when he saw the light seemed to come towards him. Now his 3 dogs alerted too, sensing and probably now habituated to Tom's nervousness about them. Now when it darted away again, for some reason Tom let the dogs go after it. They pursued the orb, snarling and leaping at it, hoping to catch it. Now eventually the orb steered them towards a copse of trees where they all left Tom's sight from where he was standing. It was then Tom heard the frantic howling of his dogs, clearly in agony, beyond simple distress, and then silence. Now the book says Tom's heart sank, but he chose to go inside. Now I love dogs, and this breaks my heart. Now were they my dogs, I would not have let them go in the first place. But if they ran off anyway, I would have faced doom with them. I would have run after them to protect them or to fight next to them. I would not make a very good soldier. I think my heart would get in the way. I'd probably get me killed. Tom did not go down to check on his dogs until the light of morning. He discovered 3 circles of brown dried grass, and in the center, incinerated tarry masses that were once his beloved ranch companions. Now, the book tells us he was heartbroken and disgusted at the smell and all of these emotions. But personally, even knowing that work animals are there to do a job, to let them loose against those mysterious orbs, I find this confusing and heartbreaking too. And they're not even my dogs. I don't know. What was he thinking? Now, if it were my ranch, Angie would have found 4 incinerated masses, I guess. Me being one of them. Now, ranchers and farmers experience life and death different than others. I think they see it more keenly than we do, and I'm not judging him. I understand their point of view, and I guess as a suburbanite, I would have run into my death right along with him. Man, that makes me stupid. Again, strong emotion. Is that somehow the point? I don't know. What do you think about that? Did Darth Vader kill him?
I just decided, okay, this is serious. I shouldn't say anything because I don't want to undercut your tone there. That's
I don't know.
Fair.
People love dogs.
Of course they do.
People
I'm not,
love their
and
dogs.
I understand what you're saying. I think your point about suburbanites and their relationship with animals
that's certainly true.
versus ranchers, farmers, and working animals. The relationships are different. It's in a sense the same as a general sending his men off to go. He knows what could happen, and he cares about that at some level. But at the same time, that's what has to be done because that's the work they do. So in this case, he sent the dogs ahead and probably said, "Oh shoot, that was the wrong decision."
Yeah. This is why this among all the others made me think they're just not thinking clearly. I'll tell you what he was thinking. He wasn't thinking straight. And nor were any of them in any of these stories. It seems to me, like a 5-foot tall wolf at the shoulders comes up and you pet it.
Yeah.
You call your kids over to see the pretty wolf.
Yeah.
You're all the weird little things. And then he let his loved dogs. I mean, it's very clear. The book is very clear. And I think in hindsight, he's probably mortified that he did it. And it very much explains.
Did he even conceive when he sent the dogs off that this might be a possibility?
I don't think so.
Right.
But what I do know is that they were very... the orbs represented dread and fear. And and that's a good point in the moment. It's like, okay, they're going to chase after it and then they'll come back. But then the confusing part was when they were clearly in distress, he didn't go down. And again, I just can't help but think that they're not thinking clearly.
Okay. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
all
have,
I can do is agree with you.
I would have gotten my rifle and I would have, even though I'm going to shoot an orb. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just find it's the emotion. In me, it's the emotion. I'm like far removed from this thing, and the emotion of losing, one of my dogs would have been horrible. Anyway. All right. Well, let's keep going. Now, Ellen came to believe the ranch was listening, eavesdropping, absorbing everything they said, and then would respond in kind. Now, in one of our final stories, one day in broad daylight, Tom and Ellen discussed their fear of losing the cattle. Now, as of listening, they discovered the cattle missing. Now, it was a case of the animals being there one moment and gone the next. Now, it took a few moments for them to realize that the cattle had been herded into a large container they kept on the property, like one of those Connex containers.
Yep, I have a visual.
Yeah, and they had been herded in, and the door of the container was closed and locked without making a sound, and all in a few moments.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's just impossible.
Yep.
You know, and there's many stories of that where farmers would see that their flock was in the upper field and walk down to the other field, and they're there too. And then, you know, all coincident with craft and all this. There's lots of those stories that I've heard over the years.
Yeah, I feel like I heard one recently. It might have been on Richard Haddam's show.
Yeah,
where
they're all over.
Where the story was that the rancher farmer had a I think it was a farmer with a dairy herd. Mm-hmm. Hey, he'd get a call, your herd is here. He'd go down the street to the next farm, grab the herd, come back, lock them into the pasture again. Then he'd go back into the house, the call would come, your herd is back.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. It just took me all that time to get them the first time. How could they already be back there? And I'm trying to remember which story that was, but it will come back to me.
Yeah, there's lots of them like that.
That's a weird one. And I think that is a fairly typical type story.
Yep. Now, the ranch appeared to toy with their emotions, as we have seen. Now, this is not out of line with what researchers later assess about the ranch itself. That is, that somehow, some way, the ranch is sentient, a conscious being interacting with whoever is there. Now, the problem was, its interaction is annoying at the least, and at its worst, heart-wrenching, cruel, and dangerous, at least for animals. Now, incinerating dogs and mutilating animals feels cruel, heartless, pointless, at least to us. Is it a game it's playing, or does it just not understand? Does it understand perfectly, but evoking strong emotion is part of this plan? Now, these are not easy questions. There are no easy answers. And I keep poking at this because emotion harvesting is something that we've heard in the UFO phenomenon. We've heard experiencers come back and say that actually what the Greys are doing are, one, I've heard that they're investigating emotion at all because they've lost theirs. It was somehow bred out of them.
Yeah.
Or that emotion itself is some sort of fuel of some kind. Oddly enough, another cultural reference would be Monsters, where the screams would charge up the batteries in the monster world. I mean,
or the laughter, as they discover in the movie. Yeah. Emotional energy either way. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and what does all the lore say as like the ultimate goal is love, right? And what is that but an emotion? So what's there? Well, I don't know. Keep talking, try and figure it out. Now, as we'll see in future episodes, the moody, cruel, aggressive trickster ranch might just not want some kinds of interaction. Now, we shall see that how you interact plays a part in what reactions you get. And John, you mentioned the show and them being agogged at the orbs. There is probably some truth to that, and it pisses me off a little bit because I too get pissed when they overplay something. And you're correct. But on the other hand,
I was a little surprised at your reaction because I didn't think I was out of line in terms of what you see, because that's kind of how the show continues to be.
It makes me. I'm conflicted because it makes me mad that they do it. But on the other hand, the way they're going about the investigation might be such that they would get more if they did less.
Okay,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. The book gets to this. And when we wrap up, we'll get to that. But by July 1996, the Gormans met their limit and ended up selling to NIDS, and that's the National Institute for Discovery Sciences. after their stories on the ranch made a splash in the press. The newspaper men showed up. Now, weirdly, Tom would stay on to help the NIDS team and offer his insight. And frankly, his curiosity was too great. Now, what would you do? What would you do, John? I mean, if you had a haunted house and it was just crazy active, and then you're like, I'm done, I can't live here. But someone said, well, we're going to investigate it. Would you stay on and keep looking at it or provoking it or doing whatever? I'm just curious.
If I were fed up enough to be selling it, I probably wouldn't be staying on. No.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, well, Bigelow's a billionaire, so maybe he paid him well.
Yeah, I suppose if you paid me well enough, I would stay, yes.
Well, that's
you don't pay me, I stay here.
No, that's true. Well, yeah,
just yanking your
That's true. You're right. That's a good point. Well played.
I don't know.
Touche.
I don't know.
Touche.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe if you really
let me get a little bit more.
I could see that though. No. I'm seeing now. Yeah, thanks. All right. Now I'm seeing a different perspective in that if it's not just a case of selling it and moving on. He's selling it to a group he thinks can investigate, handle, potentially contain the whatever's going on. If he feels a little safer with them. If he thinks he's going to get an answer.
Well, I'd say first of all, family and animals, get them off the ranch.
Yeah.
Get them off.
Yeah.
Job done.
Yep.
Now what's left is the mystery. Could you walk away from the mystery?
Yeah.
I don't know as if I could. And everything you said is true.
Especially if I think there's an answer around the corner. Yeah.
Yeah. And you bring in experts, right? And there's so much in the book. As you know, like it's like the movie and the book. The book has the details. The movie gives you the themes, right? We've just touched upon some of the themes here. But we're going to save a lot of more details for future episodes. There'll be at least 3 more because I have yet to even describe Skinwalkers. I've not described what John hates about the show, which is just the long plotting science in action, which is boring to some. And they try and make it exciting when they have results. But that can be frustrating. And so we're going to cover a lot of what they've discovered so far and where they get. And that's it. Yeah, there's so much to cover, but future episodes to come. Any thoughts you have? I do have a last story to tell, but I'm going to do it sort of unscripted. It's a good one.
Okay.
And I was interested in looking at the time and where we were.
No, I don't think I have any other thoughts. I'm curious to hear this last unscripted story.
Yeah, well,
okay.
I a little bit ran out of time, but you see the words there.
Yeah, I do.
One more cultural icon here.
That's why I'm like, where? Okay, and it's unscripted. I thought maybe you just had it in your version over there, but
no.
Okay.
There was a little bit of part of it running out of time. I was going to take it out. Because I felt like, this is going long. But then I was like, I don't care.
Don't keep the people in suspense. Just lay it
on.
We're
going to tell it.
Okay.
We're going to tell it. But I'm just explaining why it's not scripted. So anyway, so one day on the ranch, Tad and Tom are there. And a guy, I guess at this point in time, the gate that I keep mentioning at the end of the mile down by the road, you stop and open it. You know what I mean? Like if you keep a gate, you keep it closed, but it's not locked. I mean, now it's certainly locked. No one can just wander on the ranch. But in his day, it was like, well, it's closed. And it would take it keeps an honest person out. But one day a guy pulls up in a vehicle and he's now down by the house and he encounters Tom and Tad. And it's this, I envision him sort of like a new age kind of guy, think long hair, think Jesus.
I have heard this story, so go on.
Yeah,
I'm just going to let you tell it.
Think Jesus, but in just normal clothes, whatever. But it's just the beard and the long hair. He's like, hey.
Peace and love.
Yeah. I mean, he's new agey. Probably.
I've come for the vibes.
Yeah. New age, not new thought. He's a new age guy. But he says, I know about the ranch. And man, I want to meditate on the ranch. And at first, Tom is like, come on, man. Like, no, this isn't a playground. I'm not opening up. If I let you, I got to let every other nut on here to do, what you plan to do and go meditate somewhere. But ultimately, Tom is convinced to let the guy come on. So
another potential example of
poor thinking or something.
Poor thinking or action against interest.
Yeah. Action against interest. Yeah. Or curiosity.
Yeah.
At this point,
mingled together.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes it uneasy to explain.
Yeah. And I can't rightly in this moment tell you where they are in their thinking. Like,
right.
They're probably very well acquainted at this point with the phenomena happening. And
but there's the guy.
He knows there he is.
Wearing his metaphorical Birkenstocks.
Yep. And
hey man,
he's like,
I just want to meditate and be one with the world.
Yeah. So they take him to a part of the ranch, and they let him, and they let him meditate. He wanders off, and they're very specific that he's holding his hands sort of in that saintly fashion with his hands, palms upturned out like a saint would, or this image of a guy.
I've got it in mind.
And he's quiet and he's meditating. Now, Tom and Tad are watching the guy. The guy's there, with his eyes closed. He's meditating. He's doing a good showing of a meditator. And apparently something's happening because Tom and Tad, off on the edge of the pasture, see movement in the trees. And they look, and to their surprise, there is motion. But it's not clear. It's motion, but it's not. It's sort of a glimmering, glowing, humanoid type of shape.
Is it an exceptionally hot day? Because they only come in the hottest years.
Oh, is that? Yeah, you're quoting the movie. I'm not that good. If you are, people are enjoying it. It went over my head. But it would look like heat shimmers, though.
Uh-huh.
So this glimmering thing approaches the meditating man and gets right up on him and lets out this blood-curdling scream, yell, roar. Now, Tom and Tad, who watched the whole thing from the beginning, were their quotes were that the roar pierced them emotionally like being shot with a bullet. Like it entered their beings. It was so loud and so visceral and so terrifying. This thing roared. The meditating guy woke up, or rather opened his eyes and saw the Glimmer Man, because we've talked about the Glimmer Man before, screamed himself, and apparently frightened the Glimmer Man, or the Glimmer Man moved off, went up the mesa and over, and never to be seen in that day again. Now, the meditating man ran to Tom, hugged him in fear and fright. Tom was struggling to get this hysterical guy off of him, eventually tells him, "You either get off of me or I'm going to hit you." Eventually, the guy said, "I'll let go if you promise to take me back to my car. I'm never coming on this ranch again." And, of course, they did that, and off he went, and they never saw that guy again. Mm-hmm. So that's the story. It's in the book, and I found it fascinating because I had mentioned before there are things on the show that I wish that they would do, and it was that in my mind.
The meditating?
Yeah, to have someone come on and to meditate on the property and see what they might pick up, or what the result would be. And then after having read the book, I'm like, I can see why they may not do it, or they may not televise it. I don't know, for fear of provoking this thing to come back. Now, what was that? I don't know. The Glimmer Man was on the Paulides movie, The Hunted, and it was told in the context of Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's associated with any number of other phenomenon. Yeah, it's been associated with UFOs. It's been associated with Bigfoot. It's been associated with government conspiracy, because one of the theories is that it's some kind of government military cloaking device.
Right.
It could be all of these things at once. Who knows? And of course, the cultural touchstone for this is always is Predator and the special effect for how the alien cloaks himself in that movie. And it's often described that way. It's there. I believe there are a handful of incidents before the movie that talk about the shimmering effect. Afterwards, it's almost always described as just like in Predator.
Yeah.
And life, art, who imitates who? Hard to say.
Well, where did it begin? Yeah. But I mean, it's not as though it's something that no one would think of.
Right.
I mean, because the idea is that, and even the way that they approach it as a technical problem, like if we consider it a technology, the idea is that you're bending light around something. Yeah. And so it would eventually, it would look like that.
There are prototypical devices that do exactly this.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do glimmer. They do have that.
They glimmer because
pixelating effect. Yep.
Right. Well, what the image is still there. It's just that you're seeing beyond it. And there are parts where it's folding, the light is folding in on itself, even if the thing is cloaked. The invisibility cloak is what, a lot of news feeds will have. They'll say, Harry Potter suddenly real.
Yeah. If you want to go look at an example, all you have to do is Google invisibility cloak, and you will get some modern technological examples of this that human beings can do. And they all have limitations, but
well,
that's current limitation.
There's
the fact that you can get as far as they've got.
You can make
is interesting.
it on your own. Like I can take this camera, I can put it on a rig on my back, and I can shoot the background behind me, and then on my shirt have a technology like a flexible screen technology that is projecting what the camera looking behind me is seeing. And I'm effectively cloaking myself.
Right.
And that's really what's happening. Now that's the poor man's, but that's the technology that you'll see on vehicles that they use. It's the same vehicle that cars will use to show how you're fitting into your parking space by having these cameras point downward. It's just the assembly of images from cameras. But there you go. There's the meditator story with Glimmerman. So that's the last story that I have. That's the story of the Gormans. So what do you think? Anything you want to riff on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you pretty much covered all the things I had some memory of. Yeah. This is the story I'm most familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, the Gorman family having their experiences there, and then selling to NIDS.
Yeah.
The very and I even feel like there may have been some things that happened that got left out, but I don't know that there was anything super important. You covered the sort of poltergeisty type activity they had. I'm just trying to work through, and I think maybe some of the other stories I'm familiar with have to do with when NIDS showed up.
There's more that happens. This is not wrung out by any means. No, I pulled up the next book here.
Yeah, I think some of the other poltergeist type activity I'm remembering has to do with NIDS experiments on the property.
Yeah.
And trickster elements against what the kind of instruments that they deploy to try to test or measure or record.
And things get a little more subtle, frankly. And there's a reason behind that. I mean, we can talk about that now if you want to.
I just want to. I think we can talk about it enough to leave a bit of a marker in that. Yes, what strikes me about how this story develops is we've got the Gorman family having these encounters and engagements that have a degree of flamboyance or physicality about them. I like you said, a 4.5 foot tall wolf, massive wolf. The not just orbs, but the triangle craft, the refrigerator type craft. Extensive poltergeist type activity, telekinetic activity, however you want to term it. But things moving around, blah blah blah. That's. And I said flamboyant. I mean like that's hard to ignore. Overwrought.
It's over. I wouldn't say even overwrought.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with the right word.
What's overwrought?
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with the word, but it's.
I would just say.
But then
I would just say provoking. It's very provoking, and that's why the theme of this is emotion.
Yeah, but then when the scientists show up, as you say, it becomes more subtle, and this is the stories. Like I said, I know there are some stories about when NIDS shows up and they start putting instrumentation down, sensors to do things, and the poltergeist will mess with them in certain ways. Still somewhat, from a story perspective at least, somewhat hard to ignore. But now I'm watching. The reason I can't find the TV show watchable is it's gotten so subtle. It's like, what are they doing? You know, to me as I watch.
Well,
it's just it's like the line has gone down over time.
It hasn't. Your ability to tune in to what they're doing has like been erased. Like you never synced with it in the first place.
To my knowledge, they're not experiencing skinwalkers, dire
they're
wolves,
not. But they never did.
Glimmermen.
They never did on the show.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
Okay.
And what the book will tell you is that there was a very distinct discussion about it. And Tom, the reason why I left Tom as the last part of the story saying he stays on is because one of the first conversations in this book, which carries on the story, is
you're holding up the sequel book.
You're about to come marching in with all of these scientific sensors and this and that and the other thing. You're probably not going to get the responses that you want.
Right.
They acknowledged him.
Right.
They said,
"This is why I want to have this
understand.
conversation."
And he is saying, "Look, there is an intelligence here. You're." And I don't want to misquote it because I want to go back and refresh my mind on it. But it's effectively the reason the family saw so much was because they were trying to do everything but be flamboyant and over and in your face and have experiences. And it's probably the reason why the phenomenon provoked them so much is because their wish was exactly opposite.
Right.
I want peace and quiet. I don't want gossip neighbors. I don't want people up my butt.
Yeah.
But yet they're like, oh no, you're going to have this.
So it's almost like there are two sides.
The most emotion.
There are two groups involved in this activity. There's the phenomena, for lack of a better term at the moment, and the human beings.
Right.
And as one's interest goes up, the other one's goes down. So, as you get human beings who are more interested in proving the other group phenomenon is there, the less interested the phenomenon is in interacting with them or proving anything or helping them out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a weird balance.
Yeah, and I don't think that's unusual. I think there is there's. In our Mercy Brown episode, we talked about the difference between folklore being very fluid and authors liking rules. Okay. But authors' rules do help us try to make sense of things. Where do you want me on that?
Just turn the mic.
I'll turn this
towards
way.
You. There you go. Perfect.
So there is a theory in fantasy literature, some fantasy literature, particularly urban fantasy literature, that over exaggerates what in paranormal circles is sometimes called the observer effect. Mm-hmm. It's even the observer effect is even a theory in scientific examples too. Like what you're seeing in science, by observing it, you are affecting it.
Right.
Right. Okay. So in the urban fantasy theory that it goes on is. If I'm skeptical, if I'm scientific, if I'm trying to measure the magical effect, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is a theme that kind of came up in Dean Radin's book, where he said that it is very much the case, and it starts to be proven through repetition of some of these scientific experiments, that if an examiner or a principal investigator goes into an experiment doubting that he's going to get one result or the other, he's going to get what he expects, even if it is against like what has normally been a repeated experiment. So you bring about the effects that you want in some cases. And that has been an issue with science at a deeper level that most folks don't understand, is that repeatability of experimentation is the bulwark on which everything is built.
Well,
and a lot of things are not as repeatable as you might think.
And this would be even more prevalent if the phenomenon has an intelligence behind it that can say, well, I'm not going to cooperate with that.
The thing is,
I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and this is where it gets that trickster element. It defies any knowledge. It is just there to cause chaos. It's there to cause confusion, and
yes.
what ends up happening
it, by definition, can't be ordered.
It can't be ordered. It's not going to give you what you're looking for. Yeah. It's not going to give them peace in the family ranch. If you're worried about losing the cattle, it's going to mess with you and hide them from you. And who knows? I mean, it may be collectively across the whole Uinta Basin, they wished the wolves were back in a big way because they helped keep other things controlled.
All right, I have serious doubts about that only because I know how ranchers feel about wolves. But I see your point.
But the modern human thinks that we should give back what we took away. Do you understand?
Well, not the ranchers. This is why I know that. This is why the ranchers are killing the wolves that live in Yellowstone.
But what I'm saying is that there might be more residents than there are ranchers. So all I'm saying is that it might be picking up on the collective
I see your
thought
point.
and again, we were all talking about speculation.
Right.
That there is that it is reflecting something that everybody's thinking potentially. Or it's having its own thought, and here's how I want to interact. But the truth that we can see is that the television show will show, as far as we know, what they choose to put out there as the show is not as it's not as flamboyant as what we just talked about in the script by any means. Now is it happening? And they don't televise it. You know what I'm saying? I find that hard to believe.
I also find that hard to believe.
But I wonder, when Brandon Fugel purchased it from Bigelow, to what degree was the government involved? In other words, this is like a UNESCO heritage site. I can't go buy a UNESCO heritage site as far as I know. It's like there would have to be you would have to accept through ownership certain things. Like if you go to Ellicott City, you can't just own any of those homes in old Ellicott City without signing a contract with Howard County that says you're going to keep it up to a certain standard.
Right.
In other words, the government will control something that has significant cultural value.
Yes.
So if the ranch is somehow considered in some bureaucratic process, some cultural value, or of some interest to the government, is it the case that Brandon Fugel was only allowed to buy it from Bigelow under the auspices that the government agreed to? Yes, you can own it. Yes, you can have a television show. Yes, you can run experiments there. Yes. No. If you run across this, you can televise it. If you run across this, you cannot. And I wonder about that. I don't know. I've never heard any news about that. In the same way, like if I am a scientist and I'm hired by the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory,
right,
and I'm doing experimentation, and they say, "Oh, Mike figured out how to run his car engine on water," is the government going to let that happen? Let that be known, or not? Right? That's the question. I don't know. We don't have to dwell there, but whatever I find is under the control of the auspices of the government by virtue of me working for them. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'm wondering. Like Bigelow, they let him go because they knew he was somewhat under their thumb, meaning he had a relationship with them as a contractor. So anyway, lots of interesting speculation. Yeah, I think the phenomenon, remains mysterious, obviously. I don't think we are anywhere near understanding its motivations. I think the show does help sort of illuminate some things. I will say that some of the latest episodes have been pointing to some interesting things that point to some science that we have some familiarity with, I'd say, we collectively as humans. So I think they are starting to make some headway into it.
The last thread
I find it interesting
that I picked up was that they had drilled into the mesa and pulled out ceramic that had magnetic properties and appeared to be like...
Not magnetic, but
Oh, I saw magnetic, so I don't.
Yeah,
maybe they didn't make a big deal of it, but they actually attached magnets to the ceramic and picked it up and went, "Oh my God, that's not what some ceramics are supposed to do."
Did it be?
Yeah.
No, well, the ceramics were not magnetic, as far as I know.
All right.
I would look into that.
Maybe I'm watching a different
that's
show,
the case,
but yeah, what I thought was that ultimately
they did pull out ceramics.
That the ceramics
they are
were
interesting because they are
related to.
They mimic what the
space
space shuttle
Yeah.
puts on its underside as it enters the atmosphere again, where the heat is absorbed by the material.
Yeah, suggesting that there's some kind of spacecraft in the.
Why are you?
Mesa. Why am I? Because I mean, okay.
Well, they pulled out this material. I'm just wondering, what do you think it is?
I don't know.
Think it just? What do you think it is?
I don't know.
Don't you find it interesting at all?
So, have I ever told you why I'm not an archaeologist? You know, that finding ceramics in the desert doesn't excite me at all. Because I mean, we find ceramics all kinds of places. I don't know. It'll be curious to see what this is,
with
but
these properties.
I don't know what it is. Well, yeah, that's what they were saying. Was it's magnetic, and therefore that's not something ceramic
I wouldn't
is supposed
keep
to be.
saying magnetic. I don't think it's magnetic.
All right.
It has different interesting properties, but I don't think magnetism was one of them. In other words, I'd have to check on that. I don't think that's what it was. It does have other interesting properties in that. But let's save it. Let's save it for the episode because then we're going to get to all that, and I don't want to, give not to say to give it away, but we're going to cover it deeply, and we're going to understand at least what we're dealing with.
Pointing that something is buried in the mesa, and it's probably extraterrestrial, which is not off-brand for the Ancient Aliens Network.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of other theories of what they think is there. That we'll talk about.
Okay.
But I do find it interesting that when they go in there, they are coming out with material that is unique and exotic in certain ways and would be tough to explain. Anyway, but we'll see. We'll cover that in a future episode when we get actually into the television show proper. The next time we come back to the ranch, we're going to talk about the NIDS era. We're going to talk about Bigelow and the work that he did on the ranch and what they discovered and all the. It's really no less exciting. They did have, I think, some lesser experiences. It was less common, but still some pretty fantastic stuff, and maybe some different things, fundamentally different things. Although that's hard to say. It will have a different feel. But anyway, all right. I think we've done it. We're about just short of 2 hours. So this at this point, you'll know that maybe we split it, maybe we didn't. We'll see. It's 2 hours. We may split it into two. Any final words?
No.
You've I'm afraid. You've wrung out all of your disdain.
It seems disdainful. It's just lack of. It's really more lack of.
You'd rather talk about Nessie.
It's lack of excitement. I mean, they found ceramic. Okay, that's a far cry from a dire wolf. It's a far cry from the Glimmer Man, and I just feel I feel underwhelmed. Underwhelmed is probably the best way to put it. Underwhelmed.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate that. It's just a matter of interest.
I understand.
You're not interested in the properties of ceramic that they would find.
Right. If they can prove that something's buried there, if they can prove that the ceramics is...
That's what they're trying to do.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. But we aren't there yet, and it's so different from where we start, and particularly in this story, that I'm underwhelmed. I'm just like, where is this going? Where does this come from? How do these things match up?
Yeah.
I don't see the thread through there to the point where if they found an alien spacecraft under that mesa, that would amaze me. But I'd still say, where's the thread back to the poltergeist activity? Where's the thread back to the Gorman family experiences? Or is that something else completely different? Because I have a feeling if they find an alien spacecraft, while that would be earth-shattering in so many ways,
I think
we're going to say case closed, and it's like, well, that had nothing to do with all the other activity.
I think you're missing. I think you're missing one of the key things that we talked about again and again, and you're talking around it, and you're sort of
not.
blind to it. And I think, I know you're blind to it, but yeah, I think you're missing that. You keep saying, "What's the thread of
What's
it all?"
the connection? Yeah,
and I keep saying that the ranch is sentient. And I think that's what you're missing. You're thinking UFOs.
Well, then that doesn't have any connection to a UFO either.
It does, absolutely, it does. A sentience would, consciousness.
Okay, well then let's save that for another episode where you can explain that to me. Because unless you're saying the ranch reached, mentally reached out and brought the aliens to it.
We can tease it right now.
I don't see how it.
There's a possibility. Yeah, so one, and I don't know anything more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that you could say by way of speculation is that there is indeed a crashed craft that was detonated within the mesa when it tried to make an appearance through the portal and instead hit the mountain. In other words, it's a failed attempt at appearing in this dimension, and it was obliterated, and that's why it's scattered into the mesa, like literally embedded in the mesa.
Okay.
Like the story of the guy from the Philadelphia experiment where the guy was like hanging out of the wall when it went from one place to the other, something like that. One thing we do understand in the current lore of craft is that they are controlled by consciousness. So what could actually be there?
You say that as a
mesa?
given. I don't know that everybody agrees to that.
No, nobody agrees on anything. That's the entire point. You're like, good Lord. Oh, that reductionist mind of yours cannot parse these easily. No one agrees. And a lot of people still are stuck on nuts and bolts, strictly. Like, I built this out of aluminum.
Right.
I get in it, I put gas in it, and I fly to Mars.
If you had said to me, no,
but there are others.
The consciousness of the alien spacecraft that crashed there 12,000 years ago at the dawn of mankind, that's the consciousness of the ranch, I'd have said, oh, light bulb moment.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
but I'm not sure that that's...
I don't know that's what's happening, but what I'm saying, why... The fact that we're saying that the ranch or a piece of land would have consciousness in the first place. Now, we do that obliquely when we say, I'm at a haunted place, and a medium comes in and says there are elementals all over this land, right? They're of the land, and an elemental is here, if you're buying into the lore of elementals and that sort of thing. In the same way, we get here, and we have this area that seems to be a fairly localized event. We've got a craft, or I should say, we should have people supposing that maybe that what we have inside the mesa is a craft. There's multiple reasons why they think that's the case, to include the evidence of the ceramics, which mirror what we do on our own shuttle craft that we've created, in addition to the exotic metals that they've pulled out, which apparently sort of defy explanation. We'll have to dig into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, if we want to draw it into the consciousness, there's a subsect of the UFO technology groups that think that the craft are actually conscious beings themselves, and that a pilot would join in the consciousness with the craft, and that's how it's able to move about. And so could it be that what's crashed there is still thinking? Maybe it's thinking like an AI, but it's broken somehow. Well, maybe its morality sensor is busted. Maybe its logic sensor is broken.
I can speculate endlessly. If it just materialized inside the mesa in a manner that it wasn't supposed to, then it's merged with the material of the mesa itself, and that might be throwing off whatever.
Yeah, and like it's
thinking process
it's broken somehow. But on the other
quote
hand,
unquote machine had, because we're going to start stretching definitions, especially when we're speculating, so that consciousness has become crazy, and that's why these things happen.
It could be insane. But here's the rub with that is that when and again, I hate pointing to television shows, but the shows just bring it to the masses, right? But the research is there are two folks that go around in a separate show that go to other locations and have the same effects.
Right.
They're discovering the same things. Like the Bradshaw Ranch has a window that the people looked out their kitchens and saw the window open and things come through, come stepping out, which is what happens back on the ranch. Other places, you've got you've got apparently the phenomenon is consciousness in the Ohio Valley to involve people that move through it, who anybody who participates with it, it will participate back. So the question is, are we dealing with, several consciousnesses that are attached to the land somehow and interacting with people that live upon it? Who knows? So that's where my mind goes. And that's what makes it fascinating for me. Even if I do have to sit through a show that is just produced for people so every episode has to stand alone. And it does get a little tiring, but I'm able to. I want to see every step they take because I want to understand how they get there. But anyway, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Okay. Anything else? You're covering your mouth. You sure? Go on, say something. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.